In the gilded halls of Boston's elite society, where success is measured in prestigious degrees and social connections, I lived in the perpetual shadow of my sister Maya. At 47, she was the golden child, the crown jewel of our family's legacy, while I, 5 years her junior, was treated as little more than an afterthought in our parents' grand design. Our childhood unfolded in an affluent Boston suburb, where our parents, now in their late 70s, orchestrated our lives like conductors of a symphony, except Maya played first chair while I was relegated to the back row. Despite both of us possessing remarkable intellectual gifts, Maya was always presented as our family's masterpiece, while I was treated as the rough sketch that should have been discarded. The disparity between us manifested in every celebration, every milestone. Maya's birthdays were grand affairs, held in opulent venues with guest lists that read like a who's who of Boston's upper echelon. My own birthdays, in contrast, were acknowledged with hastily purchased cards and dismissive explanations about depleted funds, as if my very existence was an inconvenient drain on the family's resources. This pattern of favoritism followed us through our academic careers. When Maya gained acceptance to an elite private high school, our parents threw an extravagant all-night gala that became the talk of the neighborhood. 2 years later, when I earned a merit scholarship to an equally prestigious institution, their response was a tepid, "At least we won't have to pay for this one." Every achievement I earned was measured against Maya's and found wanting, like comparing cubic zirconia to their precious diamond. The financial disparity reached its peak during our college years. Our parents spared no expense for Maya's education at Yale Law School, providing her with a luxurious apartment and covering all her expenses. Meanwhile, they advised me to be practical, and either take out loans or pursue a less ambitious path, claiming their resources were committed to Maya's law school fund. Undeterred, I forged ahead, securing scholarships and working multiple jobs to earn my honors degree in computer science. Our professional lives diverged like parallel lines that would never meet, at least in our parents' eyes. Maya followed the carefully plotted course they had mapped out, ascending the ranks of a prestigious law firm with the wind of family connections at her back. I carved my own path in the tech sector, relying on raw talent and determination rather than the family name. Family gatherings became exercises in emotional endurance. Our parents proudly introduced Maya as our successful daughter, while treating me as if I were invisible. When relatives inquired about my career, our mother would either quickly change the subject or dismiss it with a wave of her manicured hand, saying, "Oh, she does something with computers," as if I were tinkering with toys rather than managing a team of engineers. Despite the constant undercurrent of disapproval, I managed to build a respectable career. By my early 40s, I had ascended to middle management at a thriving software company, leading a team of engineers and commanding a comfortable 6-figure salary. Yet in the warped mirror of our parents' expectations, my achievements were mere participation trophies compared to Maya's legal triumphs. The facade of familial harmony shattered spectacularly 3 years ago at Maya's promotion party. Our parents had rented the grand ballroom of the Fairmont Copley Plaza, a cathedral to success where Boston's elite gathered to worship at the altar of achievement. More than 200 of the city's most influential figures filled the space, their polite laughter echoing off the crystal chandeliers, while a string quartet played Bach in perfect, pristine notes. The opulence was suffocating. Towering champagne fountains caught the light like liquid gold. Elaborate floral arrangements perfumed the air with the sickly sweet scent of excess, and ice sculptures dripped slowly, marking time until my inevitable humiliation. I sat at my assigned table, deliberately placed just far enough from the main family table to make my outsider status clear, watching the spectacle unfold like a Greek tragedy where I already knew the ending. When my father rose to speak, glass in hand, I braced myself for the usual parade of praise for Maya. But what followed was beyond even my darkest expectations. "Maya has been our greatest blessing," he began, addressing the assembled cream of Boston's social and legal elite. I had long accepted my role as the family's afterthought, so that part didn't sting as much as it once had. Then came the moment that would forever alter the course of our family's history. "We should have stopped having children after Maya," he continued, his voice carrying clearly through the perfect acoustics of the ballroom, "since second attempts are usually disappointing anyway." The room erupted in polite titters, the sound of privileged amusement at someone else's expense. We could have focused all our time and resources on Maya, rather than wasting them on. He gestured vaguely in my direction, not even bothering to speak my name. My mother, standing beside him in her perfectly tailored Chanel suit, nodded in agreement, adding with a practiced smile, "At least we had one child we could be proud of." The words hung in the air like poison, seeping into every corner of the room. But it wasn't their words that cut the deepest. It was watching the reactions of those around me, the barely concealed smirks, the knowing glances, the silent validation of every doubt I'd ever harbored about my worth. Desperately, I looked to Maya, hoping that perhaps sisterly loyalty might finally overcome her golden child status. But she merely gave me a pitying look before joining in the uncomfortable laughter, as if my public humiliation was nothing more than a slightly distasteful joke. Later, when I confronted her in the hotel's powder room, her response was delivered with the casual cruelty of the perpetually privileged. "They're just joking," she said, carefully reapplying her lipstick. "Maybe if you worked as hard as I did, they'd be proud of you too." That evening, as the string quartet played on and champagne continued to flow, something inside me finally broke, or perhaps it was something finally breaking free. I left the party without a word, my heels clicking against the marble floor like a countdown to revolution. By the time I reached my car, I had already begun systematically excising my family from my life, blocking phone numbers, removing social media connections, deleting email addresses. Within a week, I had secured a position at another software company across town and begun the process of rebuilding my life from the ground up. For the first time, I felt truly unburdened by the weight of constant comparison and perpetual disappointment. I threw myself into my work with renewed focus, finally free to pursue excellence on my own terms rather than chasing an impossible standard set by my sister's shadow. 3 years of blessed silence followed, during which I flourished in my independence. I traveled extensively, purchased a stunning brownstone in Back Bay that I furnished exactly to my taste, and forged genuine friendships with people who valued me for who I was, not who I failed to be. The weight of constantly trying to earn my parents' love gradually lifted, replaced by a sense of self-worth that wasn't measured against my sister's achievements. Then yesterday, like a bolt from the blue, the carefully constructed wall between my past and present began to crumble. The messages came in waves, first through email, then voicemails on my work phone, and finally texts from unknown numbers. After months of radio silence, this sudden barrage of communication from my parents set off alarm bells in my mind. Something catastrophic must have happened to breach the barriers I'd so carefully constructed. Against my better judgment, I unblocked their number and returned their call, my heart pounding a warning rhythm against my ribs. What they revealed was a masterpiece of karmic irony, a twist of fate so perfect it could have been scripted by the gods of retribution themselves. Maya, their golden child, their crown jewel, had been secretly battling a severe cocaine addiction. 3 months ago, she had lost her position at the law firm, but had managed to maintain the illusion of employment, a house of cards that finally collapsed when one of their country club associates spotted her in a compromising state outside a notorious drug den in one of Boston's less savory neighborhoods. The cruel irony of the situation wasn't lost on me. Maya had turned to cocaine to maintain the crushing pace and pressure of being the youngest senior partner, to sustain the perfect image our parents had spent decades polishing. The burden of their endless expectations and her own perfectionism had driven her to chemical assistance, a desperate attempt to remain the flawless daughter they demanded. My mother's voice cracked with shame as she revealed how Maya had burned through not only her own savings, but also their retirement fund to feed her habit. Yet even now, facing their daughter's potential destruction, their primary concern remained unchanged, their precious reputation. "We can't let anyone at the club know about this," my mother whispered conspiratorially, as if the phone lines might be tapped by the social elite. "We've already had to make excuses for her absence at recent gatherings." Then came the part that made my blood boil. My father, true to form, began searching for someone else to blame for his golden child's fall from grace. "You didn't expose her to drugs back then, did you?" he accused, his voice dripping with insinuation. "You were always the rebellious one." I sat in stunned silence, marveling at their ability to blame their useless daughter for problems with their perfect one, despite 3 years of no contact. My mother quickly revealed their true motivation for calling. "Please come home and help us take care of her," she pleaded. "We can't send her to rehab. People would find out. You could probably take a few weeks off work. After all, your work isn't nearly as important as Maya's former position." That final comment, delivered with such casual disdain, confirmed that nothing had changed. Their subsequent revelation only heightened the absurdity of their request. Maya's former colleagues had already attempted intervention twice, even offering to arrange private treatment at a discreet facility in Switzerland. "We can't risk anyone finding out," my father explained. "The family's reputation would be ruined if it became known that Maya had entered a rehabilitation facility. We want to handle this internally." Their plan, if one could dignify it with such a term, was to keep Maya confined to her old room at their house, with me serving as her full-time caregiver. Through sheer force of will and familial duty, they seemed to believe their useless daughter could somehow cure their perfect one's drug addiction. After hours of deliberation in my Back Bay study, watching the sun cast long shadows across the Charles River, I made the decision to contact Maya directly, circumventing our parents' carefully constructed narrative. What transpired was a conversation that shattered my preconceptions and forced me to confront the true cost of our parents' toxic legacy. Maya's voice on the phone was barely recognizable, a hollow echo of her former confidence, each word seeming to require Herculean effort to form. She spoke in fragments at first, like pieces of a broken mirror reflecting the shattered image of our parents' perfect daughter. But gradually, the full picture emerged, each revelation more devastating than the last. "It didn't happen overnight," she whispered, her words carrying the weight of years of suppressed truth. "It started after your humiliation at my promotion party. The pressure. God, the pressure was crushing. 90-hour weeks, trying desperately to prove I deserved to be the youngest senior partner. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. Every case felt like it could be the one where I'd fail, where I'd finally prove them right about their faith in me being misplaced." She paused, her breathing ragged. One of the other partners noticed how exhausted I was. They offered me something to help maintain my edge. Her bitter laugh crackled through the phone line. "Cocaine, the perfect drug for the perfect daughter. Started as a one-time boost to get through difficult cases. Ended up being the only way I could maintain the facade." Maya described how she'd structured her entire existence around maintaining the illusion of perfection while managing her growing dependency. Morning court appearances when she was most lucid, lunch meetings that were really opportunities to use, gradually distancing herself from anyone who might notice her decline. But the most shocking revelation came through her tears. "Watching them humiliate you at my celebration, it was a turning point for me too," she sobbed. "I saw myself becoming them. I was so caught up in maintaining this image of perfection that I stood there and let them destroy you. I've carried that guilt ever since." Her voice dropped to a whisper. "They didn't just ruin your life, they ruined mine too, just in a different way." The conversation turned to her current circumstances. Everything was gone, her savings, her career, her standing in the legal community. But what terrified her most was our parents' refusal to allow her to seek professional help. "They keep saying they can handle it privately," she said, her voice trembling. "But I know I need real help. I'm scared I'll die if I don't get it soon." Then Maya did something that stunned me. She apologized. Not a superficial expression of regret, but a profound acknowledgement of her role in my suffering. "You were always the stronger one," she admitted. "You built your life despite them, while I built mine to please them. Look where that got me." As we spoke further, Maya revealed more about our parents' current behavior. More focused on maintaining appearances than getting her help, they had been micromanaging her decline. "They've created elaborate lies to explain my absence from social events," she explained. "They even stage fake video calls where I pretend to be working late at the office." The most disturbing part was learning how they had been handling her withdrawal attempts. Rather than seeking medical care, they treated it as an inconvenience. "When I have severe symptoms, they give me sleeping pills and lock me in my old bedroom," she said flatly. "They tell the housekeeping staff I have a bad flu." I overheard them discussing what to tell the country club members. They were more concerned about maintaining their standing in the club than whether I might need emergency medical care. By the end of our conversation, I had a clear picture of not just Maya's addiction, but the toxic family dynamic that had fueled it. Our parents hadn't created one successful and one failed daughter. They had damaged us both, just in different ways. "I want to get proper help," Maya finally said, "but I'm terrified of standing up to them. They've controlled every aspect of my life for so long. I don't know how to defy them." In that moment, my original plan for revenge transformed into something more meaningful. Yes, our parents needed to face consequences for their actions, but more importantly, I needed to ensure Maya got the help she desperately needed. I began formulating a new strategy that would both protect Maya's path to recovery and expose our parents' destructive behavior. The time had come to show them that their useless daughter was capable of handling any crisis, even if it meant destroying their precious social standing in the process. My plan unfolded with the precision of a chess master's endgame, targeting our parents' most precious possession, their standing in Boston's elite circles. Phase 1 began with the church community, their spiritual and social anchor for decades. I discreetly forwarded documentation to the Episcopal Church's Senior Leadership Council, including evidence of Maya's current state and a detailed letter outlining how our parents were actively preventing their daughter from receiving potentially life-saving medical care. I emphasized their rejection of the Swiss rehabilitation facility offer, painting a stark picture of parents choosing social standing over their child's life. The timing was exquisite, just before the annual church fundraising committee meeting, which my mother had chaired for 15 years. The council's response was swift and devastating. Not only was she removed from the committee, but the following Sunday's sermon about pride preceding a fall was particularly pointed, with several congregation members pointedly glancing at our parents' conspicuously empty pew. Phase 2 targeted their professional network. I methodically reached out to key associates at Maya's former law firm, expressing grave concerns about our parents' handling of the situation. The firm, already worried about potential liability, immediately distanced itself. The carefully constructed fiction about Maya's continued employment crumbled when they issued a formal statement noting her departure months ago for personal reasons. The country club stage proved particularly satisfying. All it took was ensuring the right conversations were overheard by the right people. Like wildfire through dry brush, gossip spread through the elite membership. The same social circles that had laughed at my humiliation 3 years ago now whispered about the absurdity of the situation. My mother's precious junior league connections provided the coup de grace. Their annual charity gala, traditionally held at our parents' house, was relocated due to concerns about the home environment. As their meticulously constructed social world imploded, I implemented the second phase of my plan. Working with Maya's former colleagues, I secured her a place at a prestigious rehabilitation facility in Arizona, far from Boston's prying eyes. After learning about our parents' interference with previous rehabilitation attempts, the facility's administrative director agreed to list Maya under an alias, ensuring our parents couldn't interfere with or control her treatment. Maya's journey toward recovery, both from addiction and from our parents' crushing expectations, began with a brief note she sent upon arriving at the facility. "Thank you for being strong enough to do what I couldn't." Our parents' response to their social collapse was predictably self-centered. The calls alternated between rage and desperate pleading. My father's final voicemail was particularly illuminating. "How dare you destroy everything we've built? We gave you life, and this is how you repay us." I responded with a single text. "Consider this my repayment for your years of parenting. Your reputation is experiencing what you did to my self-worth, systematic destruction. How does it feel to be seen as useless in your social circle?" The ripples continued to spread through Boston's upper echelons. Our parents, once honored guests at every significant social gathering, now find themselves quietly uninvited from important events. Their calls go unreturned, their regular reservations at exclusive restaurants mysteriously lost. They've become what they always feared, social pariahs, subject to the same sideways glances and whispers they once participated in so eagerly. Last week, I received an unexpected email from Maya's therapist at the rehabilitation facility. With Maya's permission, she shared that my sister was making remarkable progress, finally free from our parents' toxic expectations and receiving professional help. She's beginning to understand how their obsession with perfection fueled her addiction. The therapist mentioned something that brought tears to my eyes. Maya keeps a photograph of us as children on her bedside table, taken before our relationship was poisoned by our parents' expectations. She looks at it every morning as inspiration for her recovery, hoping to rebuild the sisterly bond we once had. Unable to face their humiliation in Boston, our parents have reportedly retreated to their vacation home in the Berkshires. Their final attempt at damage control, a lengthy email to their social circle claiming they were misunderstood, backfired spectacularly when someone, not me for once, leaked it to the entire country club membership, resulting in their formal suspension. Yesterday, I received a letter from one of my mother's oldest friends, who had witnessed my humiliation at Maya's promotion celebration. She expressed profound regret for not speaking up that evening, acknowledging how the community had enabled our parents' destructive behavior for years. "Sometimes," she wrote, "letting someone face the consequences of their actions is the most loving thing we can do. Some might argue that my revenge was too severe, that I should have handled the situation more diplomatically. I disagree. Our parents' reputation was built on decades of cruelty and emotional abuse, wielding their social position as a weapon to maintain control and enforce their warped vision of perfection. Now they're experiencing the excruciating reality of being viewed as a disappointment by their peers, exactly as they made me feel for decades." Maya's recovery continues to progress well. She's beginning to envision a future free from our parents' controlling influence, one where she defines success on her own terms rather than through their distorted lens. Together, we're slowly healing the damage our parents inflicted on our relationship. As for me, I've finally found peace. It turns out the useless daughter was the one who could deliver both justice and salvation. I've proven that the ability to stand up for what's right, even at great personal cost, is a better measure of success than social standing or parental approval. Our parents sought to maintain appearances at all costs. They got their wish. Everyone now sees them exactly as they truly are.